Just wanted to give you guys a quick intro. If you haven't met me before, my name is Gary. I've joined the Platts in 2012, like 10 years ago. Seems like it's only yesterday, but yeah, it's been a decade, and followed Tony around for a few years. And at that time, I had a very successful business, and it's growing. And I used to wear these happiness T-shirts around. Like, people know me as Mr. Happy. So I was happy. Business was great. I have a good family. So there was no complaints and problem I needed to solve. But I went along with Tony to India on the spiritual trip. And even prior to that, my first ever Platt event was in Whistler in the financial Platt trip. And towards the very end, Tony and Sage did the blessing. And it's my first time experiencing it. Any of you guys have experienced the Diksha or blessings before? Well, that was my first time. And at the end of the blessing, my friend's like next to me is like, Gary, wasn't that amazing? And I'm like, huh? Like, I almost fell asleep. Like, it was pleasant, it was relaxing, but after long days at a financial trip, but what was I supposed to feel? Like, what was I supposed to experience? But anyway, I went along with Tony to India. The first couple of meditation is kind of like the same as well. Like, it was pleasant. The room was freezing. But what, like, people are seeing like rainbows and seeing Tony turning into Jesus, like, and I'm not seeing any of that. Like, what's going on? That was kind of like my journey into the spiritual journey. But after a few of the process, I started experiencing transcendental type of experiences and very mystical experiences. But it wasn't so much about the mystical. Since going to India and going back numerous times, especially learning from, it used to be known as Oneness University, and then they had O&O Academy, and now Ekam, visiting them and learning from them has really shifted my life. When I was wearing these T-shirts as a Mr. Happy and successful entrepreneur, a lot of my joy and happiness derived from the external world. And I guess if it wasn't for a lot of the teachings from Sri Preethaji and her husband, now Krishnaji, during the time of lockdown and COVID, I wouldn't have so easily find joy in the simplicities of everyday life, whether it's just like staring into my backyard or just vacuuming. It could be the most wonderful thing that I could have experienced in that present moment. Doesn't mean that I don't go and create wealth and create business and create abundance in the external world. But now that my inner world has a lot more joy because of what I've learned from them. So rather than me doing an intro for Sri Preethaji, I think there's a little short video I wanted to share with you that you get to learn about what she and her husband do and the impact they're having around the world. So Venkateshji, if you can play the video, that would be awesome.
Sri Preethaji is a woman philosopher and transformational leader. She is known for her original teachings, meditation practices, and mystic processes that have helped millions in India and many nations of the world, leading them to mental health, emotional wellness, and spiritual awakening. She is renowned for her global peace efforts through the Ekam World Peace Festival, a meditation festival that has millions participating from over 100 nations of the world. Her purpose is to awaken human consciousness from agitation to peace, separation to connection, and division to oneness. In 2002, together with her husband Sri Krishnaji, she undertook the mammoth project of creating the gigantic architectural marvel of Ekam, World Center for Enlightenment, and completed it in 2008. Ekam is a sacred pillarless structure built of marble to accommodate 8,000 seekers in a state of meditation. It is a mystic powerhouse that has been created with a vision to bring world peace and enlightenment. Sri Preethaji, along with her husband, Sri Krishnaji, co-authored the US best-selling book, The Four Sacred Secrets, in 2018. She has also created Oneness Yoga, an integration of 5 forms of yoga to help the world realize the true spirit of yogic tradition. She travels to the USA, Europe, Australia, Latin America, Japan, South Korea, and China every year, offering her 4-day signature program called the Field of Awakening. Sri Preethaji has addressed prestigious gatherings of conscious world leaders on different platforms, like the Worldwide Meeting on Human Values in Mexico, the WME-IMG Annual Summit for its several thousands of executives and top management, at FIESP, the Federation of Industries Sao Paulo, at Fudan University, at the China-Europe International Business School, at the world preeminent Ideas Festival, the flagship summit at Los Angeles, and at TEDx Kansas City on living free of stress, at TEDx Shanghai on discovering a purpose, and many more. Preethaji's TEDx talk from Kansas City has been viewed by over 3 million people. She has been interviewed on prestigious online platforms such as Goop, Marie Forleo, One Commune, and has been covered in magazines including Forbes, Fortune India, Inc., Authority, and the Huffington Post. Sri Preethaji's most unique contribution to the world is the creation of the Ekam World Peace Festival to tilt the balance of world consciousness away from violence towards peace. The annual Ekam World Peace Festival that Sri Preethaji and her husband created in the year 2018 has acquired a life of its own and has grown for the past 4 years. In 2021, 30 million peace meditators across the world joined hands in the peace efforts. 186,000 peacemakers held peace points in various nations. These peace points were held in schools, colleges, universities, homes, libraries, public spaces, gardens, churches, and temples. 2,243 organizations joined in the peace meditations with their employees. 1,443 villages of India meditated those 3 days, lighting the peace lamps in their homes. 86 media partners came together to spread peace. Ekam World Peace Festival has led to a very profound transformation in young people, in families, and in the entire cultures of organizations. Yet another milestone in her march towards world peace. After more than 50 years of civil war and millions of victims, and a 3-year-old peace treaty that had polarized Colombia, influential leaders of Colombian nation joined for 3 days in the mountain ranges under the guidance of Sri Preethaji to awaken to peace. This event was the setting for something never attempted before. A group of top leaders in their diverse fields, music, culture, social ancestral leaders, businessmen, representatives of victims, members of the Truth Commission, members of civil society, as well as demobilized guerrillas and paramilitary and retired generals, gathered in the event Peace in Your Eyes to understand and give a chance to reconciliation. Sri Preethaji led every one of those leaders into responsibility for future generations, forgiveness towards each other, and compassion for their fellow countrymen and women. As a family, Sri Preethaji, along with her husband Sri Krishnaji and their daughter Loka, has created Loka Foundation. This foundation is enriching the lives of youth globally and 1,000 villages around Ekam. The Foundation's youth programs have impacted the lives of more than 500,000 students in India primarily and the world. The Foundation works with several colleges and schools of India to nurture young people into conscious leaders and change makers in the world. Loka Foundation provides clean drinking water facilities in these 1,000 villages. This drinking water project, costing over 10 crore rupees, has been a boon of health to women and children of these villages. It has prevented kidney problems in children and avoided many disasters for pregnant women. Loka Foundation also is involved in creating forests in barren lands to counter climate change. Instead of monoculture tree plantation, the foundation encourages the creation of forest ecosystems. It has inspired many volunteers throughout India to follow its example. Loka Foundation led the Bless India initiative when India was reeling under the second wave of COVID, and has offered more than 50,000 COVID safety kits costing more than 5 crore rupees to people who were tested COVID positive among local villagers, police, military personnel, frontliners, press, and hospitals. In conclusion, the world certainly is a more peaceful place because of Sri Preethaji's presence in it.
Let's give a very warm welcome to Sri Preethaji.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Wonderful to see you, Gary, and it's a joy to be with you and your audience.
It's a joy to have you. Thank you so much for gracing us with your presence. Sri Preethaji, everyone has this beautiful smile. I see them on them when you start to enter the room. So the impact is already being felt. So the topic we picked for today is how to create abundance in a beautiful state. I think a lot of us as achievers has been conditioned that no pain, no gain. There's a lot of hard work that you need to put in order to build a business, build a successful relationship, and build abundance in this world. But ever since I guess I've got in touch with the teaching from yourself and Krishnaji, that you can have the external abundance, but you can do it in a very graceful, in a beautiful state. Can you share some of this wisdom with us today?
Definitely, Gary. But before we get into that, let me introduce the mission to our audience first. And then I will get into how to create abundance from a beautiful state. My husband, Sri Krishnaji, and I have one mission. We want to birth 80,000 engaged, enlightened beings in the next decade and a half or so. And I say the number 80,000 because we believe when 0.001% of humanity is enlightened, then we would create a phase transition in humanity's thinking and consciousness. A phase transition leading towards peace, compassion, and oneness. This is our work and this is our mission. And I use the word engaged, enlightened beings. That is, in other words, we want to awaken human beings into being a Buddha who drives an eco-friendly Benz with your loved ones. So that is our mission with which we live our lives and towards which we are leading the world. That being said, I would like to talk, I know you would want me to talk on creating wealth from a consciousness perspective. I want you to become enlightened wealth creators. I want you to be enlightened parents, enlightened couples, enlightened leaders. Let me go into some basics of wealth creation from a consciousness perspective. I believe that consciousness is the root. It is the root of our decisions. It is the root of our actions. Consciousness is a term that's been widely used. It has several meanings. But in simple terms, if I have to give a meaning for this particular session of what consciousness is, let us think about it as our sense of self, the sense of me. Whether the sense of me and mine is limited and separate from the rest, or the sense of me and mine, whether it includes the others, includes loved ones, friends, colleagues, and the world. When it includes, is definitely a more connected consciousness. In India, in ancient India, just like in different parts of the ancient world, experiences in consciousness were personified. It was personified as gods and goddesses and demigods. If you have to take wealth, ancient Indians personified wealth in two forms. The first, they personified wealth as Kubera, and the second, they personified wealth as Lakshmi. So Kubera is a demigod. He had nothing godly to him. So this is the image of Kubera. He was picturized as a demigod with cruel eyes, a huge pot belly he had. He was riding on the shoulders of human beings. And as he was riding on the shoulders of human beings, he would carry a bag full of gold coins in his hands, which he jiggled in the human beings' ears as he was riding on them. As Kubera rides on your back, and as he keeps jingling the purse full of gold coins or money in your ears, he feeds you. He feeds your anxiety. He feeds your greed. He feeds your comparison. So this demigod also had a magical mongoose for a pet. So this mongoose, whenever it opened its mouth, gold coins would fall out of it. If you have to bring the entire depiction together, it is a visual depiction of meaninglessness, opulence, and quick money. So that is one depiction of God which ancient Indians or Hindus had. The second depiction of wealth, that's the first depiction. The second depiction of wealth was goddess Lakshmi. She is a goddess. She's seated cross-legged. She is seated in a meditative posture. She's seated on a lotus. She has a very beautiful smile that she carries, depicting that she is free of the fetters of anxiety for the future. And she's also free of the burdens of the past. And her hands are in this posture. It is the posture of giving and sharing. And as she is this way, she's giving and sharing, and her abundance never dries out. There are two depictions, the Kubera and the Lakshmi, one being a demigod, the other being a goddess. These are perfect depictions of a state of consciousness from which wealth is created. If you looked at the world around you, you would see leaders, organizations, families, individuals reflecting either of these two images or reflecting either of these two states of consciousness. One, wealth generated from a self-centric, separation-driven consciousness. The other is wealth generated from an inclusive and a connected consciousness. In the process of mentoring enlightened wealth creators, we have nurtured three fundamental shifts in consciousness that have impacted the family culture, that has impacted the organizational culture for many from the roots. The first shift we nurture in any wealth creator is from a pleasure-driven consciousness to a purpose-driven consciousness. When wealth creators are driven by pleasure, along with the other problems that comes along with pleasure, they suffer an enormous failure of intelligence. When a leader is driven by pleasure, and that is why he's creating whatever he's creating, that leader would bring down empires, would drag down, say, his shareholders or employees or family into poverty and depression. But have you asked this question, why so many leaders are addicted to pleasure? Have you asked why there is so much of pleasure seeking, especially amidst leaders? Because pleasure seeking is fundamentally an escape from stress and unhappiness. It is an escape for a mind that is preoccupied with self. Any form of pleasure seeking, whether it is a form of eating or drinking or gambling or entertainment or any physical pleasure, it is an addicted mind that does not know how to say it's enough. And such a pleasure-driven mind that doesn't know how to say it is enough is driven to ruin. Because every time you experience pleasure and then you get out of pleasure, boredom, loneliness, and unhappiness, they hit you with incredible force. And that is why you rush back to pleasure to escape these painful states. And it is an endless loop. With a pleasure-driven consciousness, no matter how smart you are, you may create growth because you're smart. But with a pleasure-driven consciousness, I've seen very few people create sustainable growth. The fall comes. An awakened wealth creator is driven by a purpose. And then this brings us to the question, how do we discover a purpose? We believe that you discover a massive sense of purpose only when you snap out of a habitual mind states. Habitual mind states that revolve around your limited self. You awaken to a deeply meaningful purpose when you awaken to states of consciousness beyond the self. And in our spiritual journeys or the spiritual adventures, we help you experience these profound states and take you beyond the self. When you awaken to any of these expanded states of connection, beyond the limited experience of self, the limited experience of self is pretty painful. When you awaken to those expanded states, you spontaneously tune into the problems, into the unmet needs of the people around you or the society, or you connect to Mother Earth. And in seeing this and in connecting beyond yourself, there is a gigantic response that emerges from within you. There is an immense passion that emerges from within you to create a difference. That response becomes your purpose. When you experience that profound state of connection, you experience a lot of gifts and genius flow through you. That's something that you never knew that you had in you. This is the first shift that is necessary for creating wealth from an awakened consciousness. Let us move into the second shift. The second is moving from a comparison-driven consciousness to being driven by cooperation. I believe everybody over here is a leader in your own right. Your responses to challenges are determined by what you have gone through in your life. Don't you think it's true? If as a wealth creator you have not dissolved the pain of the past, say pain of loneliness, or the uncertainty that you experienced in your childhood, or the frustration, or the failure, or the betrayals that you experienced when you were growing up or when you were a young adult. These unresolved past becomes your driver. So this comparison-driven mind constantly projects a rival. And as soon as the rival is projected, this comparison-driven mind incites to overtake the other. Overtaking your projected rival becomes your driver and not the purpose of creating a difference. That is, such a wealth creator wants to prove the superiority over the other. They want to prove the superiority over the other, either in the organization or within the industry. A comparison-driven wealth creator will pit teams within the organization against one another in order to provoke performance or in order to have lucrative ideas, resulting in backbiting, resulting in politics within the organization. once politics, backbiting sets in, whether in an organization or in the family, they lead to the collapse of the organization, collapse of probably even the lives of so many people that is involved with them. An awakened leader is cooperation driven. In order to understand what cooperation is, if we look at the trees around us, we will understand what it is. The tallest trees in the forest, I call it the hub trees. Each hub tree in the forest is connected to 47 other trees in the forest. So the hub tree is one of the tallest trees. And because it is so tall, it's able to draw nutrients, it's able to get more sunlight, and then it's able to make more food. And it reaches out its nutrients to the other trees through her roots. It also sends signals in case there is danger or extreme weather conditions or pests. In terms of whenever there is danger, the hub tree cuddles other trees. These hub trees are givers. They're also receivers, grateful receivers. In the forest floor, there are tiny little mushrooms with very fibrous roots. And these mushrooms reach out nutrients to the hub trees whenever these trees are distressed and they need help. In a forest, when a tree is cut, it is a great loss for a forest. Every tree is a great loss. But when a hub tree is cut, the repercussions is a lot. It can be massive. Just the same way, when an organization loses leaders who are cooperation driven at any early level, it is a huge loss. A great organization is one that can nurture leaders with such a cooperation driven consciousness. So the first shift is from pleasure driven to purpose driven. The second shift is comparison driven to cooperation driven. The third shift that needs to happen is, for a wealth creator, is from a ego driven consciousness to a responsibility driven consciousness. So what does it mean to be ego driven? Just like how consciousness has various meanings, ego is another new word, is another word that can be used in different sense. But for today's purpose, let us use or understand ego this way. Life is a combined flow of setbacks and successes. It's a combined flow of disappointments and achievements. When you are not in flow with life, you perceive every situation with yourself. It is yourself at the center of every situation. That is, each setback and each disappointment makes that tiny little self even smaller. And ego is your effort to enhancing that shrinking sense of self. There is a constant craving for importance because you have to make yourself feel bigger. You make yourself important, or you long for others to make you important. And this becomes the urge behind the direction you're giving the organization or the family. And when this urge to be important in your own eyes, this urge to constantly long for importance in the eyes of the other, when it becomes the culture, it becomes the pervasive culture. A culture of ruthlessness seeps into the organization or seeps into the family. And it spreads. This brings us to the question, what is the remedy? How does one transition from an ego-driven consciousness to a responsibility-driven consciousness? Advice, resolutions, they are very feeble forces when compared to the leap you need to make in consciousness. We actually need leaders, conscious wealth creators. You need to be led into a massive journey in consciousness. A massive journey of awakening, where you are woken up from the limited sense of self to awake into those profound consciousness. And that is where I think your journey should begin.
Thank you, Sri Preethaji. Do you have a process you can guide us to embed the learnings?
I will lead you through a meditation. I will lead you through a soul sync meditation. And since the entire journey is towards creating abundance, at the end of the soul sync meditation, I want you to hold an intention that you want to see manifest in your life. The soul sync meditation, I would say, it's easy for those, even for those who have never meditated earlier. It is a step-by-step guided meditation, but leaves you in a place of feeling expanded, feeling connected. And in that space of consciousness, you will hold an intention that you want to see manifest in your life. Are you all ready? Please close your eyes. Let us do the soul sync meditation together. Be seated in a comfortable position. Keep your spine erect. If possible, a little smile on your face. Inhale and exhale deep and slow. Count your breath with a touch of your thumb and your fingers. Take 8 conscious breaths. For the next 8 cycles of breath, inhale. As you exhale, make a humming noise that would vibrate your head. For the next 8 cycles of breath, inhale and exhale. Bring attention to the tiny little pause that happens between every inhalation and exhalation. For the next 8 cycles of breath, inhale. As you exhale, chant within yourself, Aham, or I am the limitless consciousness. Now bring a gentle touch between your thumb and your index finger. See yourself expand into the one unitary fabric of consciousness. See yourself expand into light. Everything around you, the walls, the trees, everything being one with light. In this space of expanded consciousness, hold an intention that you want to see manifest in your life. See it or feel it happen in your life. Immerse your heart in a space of gratitude. Gratitude towards the entire universe. Take a deep breath. You may slowly open your eyes.
Wow, that was amazing. Thank you, Sri Preethaji. So I know that some of the people in the room, they have some questions. But before we go into question time, I wanted to bring on a fellow brother. His name is Herbert. He's been a Plaid brother since over 6 years ago, and he's part of the member of the Ekam Oneness World Leader Program. He's the speaker of the Ekam community in Puerto Rico, and hosting a special Ekam event targeting Plaids in November. Ekam. So Herbert, are you here, brother? Can you share with us what's going on, what's happening, and some of your experiences with Ekam so far?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Gary, and namaste, Sri Preethaji. Thank you for your beautiful teaching, and the meditation was just always so beautiful and great to see you all, right? So this is really amazing. it's such an honor for me to be like Tony, one of the students of Sri Preethaji and Krishnaji. And they are clearly the teacher you want to have when it comes to the art of fulfillment and enlightenment. So to really combine the science of achievement with the art of fulfillment, and in other words, just driving business with enlightenment or the enlightenment position, right? And to share some experience I had is I faced numerous problems as I created the wealth out of the state from anxiety, comparison, in a state of aggression and fear. That was my driving force. And that led for me to really the point that in the process of achieving my goals, I hurt my body, my relationships, if they were even in existence, my health, and destroyed my mental state. So at the end, I was feeling like being on a hamster wheel. And even if I lived in paradise, I was miserable for my state, right? Because it was not good enough. Something to have to do more here and there and so on. So that was really a very frustrating thing. And since I'm working with Ekam, and I had the same experience as you, Gary, at the beginning, I have not felt anything, you know. It was so interesting that it seems to be that when we're so in our head, it's simply difficult to feel everything there. But if I started going through the part, and it's worked anyhow, that is the beautiful on their teaching and on their ancient technologies, right? My life changed in pretty much all aspects. With my daughter, I had a good relation, but somehow difficult. And so now she's saying that she had the father she always dreamed of, right? What can be more than for a father to hear that, right? And it's such a beautiful thing. And the relation of our family went so much better, and in all aspects. The relation with my wife Mercedes and all the other three kids went so much better, and everyone is thriving in a good way. And also based on their teaching is I was able, when the war hits in Russian and Ukrainian war, we had 300 people there. Our total operation is in the Ukraine. But we were able to handle on the one side the humanitarian things in the Ukraine, but also ensure that the business continues in a good way. So that was only possible because there was no agitation towards it. There was total calm, and with that, you were able to handle that with the team. And it was a great team experience. And for you guys and Marta and all the other guys, which are also like I am in technology and crypto investments, it was such a blessing to have these things when the market breaks down by 70, 80%, or even today, what was it, down 5% or so, right? So to be able to be totally relaxed and make the right decisions and not going into FOMO, going into all the other stuff in that. And so as a result of that, my portfolio is relatively strong compared to the market. And that is the net at the day is I'm living the best time of my life. And in a world where just trouble and challenges are around me. And this is simply just beautiful. And I really honestly think is without working with these guys, in the last year, I think I may have failed. And that is in a time where I think winter has just started. And there's much, much more challenges ahead of us. So this is a point where I think it's really the time where we have to prepare before it's too late and become an awakened leader and wealth creator. And there's a point, as Tony also say, business is a spiritual game. And this is something where we have to get spiritually awakened. And then these great minds will win on the long run. So let me ask you a question is, when was the last time you had that perfect day? The day of your dreams, when opportunities flowed into your life with ease, when your intuition was alive, and you felt unstuck, and you felt free. When you have that, how would it be if you would make every day this perfect day? I believe if we do that, we guarantee not just survive during the winter, we will thrive. And if you want to do that, I have a very special opportunity for you. And this is because Sri Preethaji this gave us the chance and was so graceful that she holds a special seminar with us, an on invitation only seminar in Puerto Rico in November from the 2nd to the 6th. And in just 4 days, but think about 4 days. We just had an hour right now, 3/4 of an hour. Think about 4 days. You will unlock the Ekam way to become an awakened leader and wealth creator. That is a beautiful opportunity, the first and the only seminar right now where this is focused on leaders and influencers, where we have a very limited space to create this environment to really focus on awakened leaders and wealth creation. This is a point where Sri Preethaji supports us, and we are so grateful for it, in our mission and our vision of an enlightened Puerto Rico to build it up and getting the world out to support their mission in the way to generate the shift of consciousness towards love and compassion and driving it out of this way. This is a phenomenal opportunity. And if you would like to be there, I would like to ask you to schedule a call with us. So I just shared that in the chat. There's a link where you can schedule a call with us, and then we can discuss over all the details. What the seminar is about in the way, what's the right thing for you? Can the seminar provide things you are searching? And if you are the right fit for that seminar. And in that schedule, we will definitely see what is the best way for you to engage with Ekam in the way which serves you best. There's a point where we need a 15 minutes call. Or on the other side, you can just send us an email over on ekampuertorico@gmail.com. And I would be very happy to see you all in that seminar and go with us, parallel to us, with us on our way of enlightenment, and really help Ekam to provide and make the goal to shift consciousness in the way, because I think we all feel it inside. It's so needed. It's so needed. So thank you so much for giving me the time for that. And looking forward to speaking with you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Herbert. Appreciate it. I understand that we slightly a couple of minutes over schedule, but we may have like a few minutes for question time. Preethaji, do you have a few minutes for any questions? Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. So just post either post your question in the chat box or raise your hands and we'll unmute you. Okay, we've got Jesse. So, yay. Unmute yourself, Jesse.
Hi, pleasure to meet you. Thank you. I'm driving, so I wasn't able to participate, but a real blessing to be able to be here. Thank you for choosing me, Gary. As someone who is kind of in the who's in the depths right now, so recently separated, got a new job, and really feeling down. Do you have something very simple to be able to make that shift towards being an enlightened leader?
How much time?
How much time do I have?
Something very simple is what you asked.
Yeah, just to start. Yeah.
For a lot of things that happens in our lives, the answer to it you would find in your consciousness. And experiencing and immersing in a profound state of, say, an expanded state of consciousness, or immersing in a connected consciousness. Being in that state can untangle many of the problems that you face externally in life. We have seen time and again that when a person dives into having an inner journey, an inner adventure, moves into those spaces of consciousness that one has never been. Very strangely, something very beautiful happens in the external life. You would see probably opportunities come your way, or you'd be able to find solutions to the problems that you're currently handling. Because your consciousness and life, as we separate it, that separation does not exist. Your state that you experience and the flow of life that happens around you is very intrinsically connected. If for some reason, because of some situation that happened earlier in your life, is putting you into a state of, say, anxiety or fear, or leaving you feeling disappointed and sad, and that is the space in which you are living a large part of your life, that very state negatively impacts the flow of life, we can say. Your consciousness and your external life are connected. So even if you're going to take a few minutes every day to do just the soul sync meditation, we can talk about it as the starting point of your journey. The meditation that we did, it's called the soul sync meditation. It's available online, and I'm sure Gary can send you the link. If you can spend a couple of minutes every day doing that meditation. Pardon? 12 minutes is what it takes. If you can immerse yourself 12 minutes every day, then slowly and surely you would see your life transforming. But what I would also suggest is to immerse in a journey, immerse in a 4-day journey. Go into depths of consciousness, go into experiencing those profound states of awakening in your consciousness that can lead to synchronicities, that can lead to miracles in your life.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
What a wonderful response. Thank you for that. Thank you for your beautiful question, Jesse. Really appreciate it. Anyone else got any questions?
Yes.
Hello, Sri Preethaji. I'm so sorry I lost my voice. I just have a question for you. You've been talking about that leaders are constantly chasing the pleasure. And then after they go out of the pleasure, then they go into that visual cycle, right? And you offered us a beautiful meditation. And my question is for you, you know, when you work with people and we have our old habits, right? So how can we actually stop what we've been doing to finally start doing something new? What is your input on that?
If you have to look at the brain, if you have to look at the consciousness, if you look at habits, you know how they are wired. Your brain, your body is tuned towards those old habits. And when I say leaders who are driven by pleasure, get back into that loop, because when pleasure becomes obsessive, pleasure actually becomes obsessive when your internal experience is very poor. It is very painful inside. It is very stressful inside. It feels very sad within you. That's how you experience yourself. You want to run away from that inner experience. And the route which probably 99% of humanity follow is pleasure. That is, they want to escape that nagging pain with which they are struggling. So they move to experiencing pleasure, believing that it is going to numb the pain. Yes, it does numb the pain for a few minutes. But then as soon as you get out of pleasure, it is that same sadness, that disappointment that holds you again. As I suggested to Jesse, the first thing is you have to start somewhere. Slowly, you have to change that entire conditioning of your brain and your consciousness that is leading you towards a stressful state. You become conscious of it. You become aware of it. The soul sync meditation would be a starting point. Or the other practice that I would highly recommend is the serene mind practice. It's a 3-minute practice. It is an awareness practice that allows you to become aware of your state rather than focusing on running away from that state. What the society, the education, even to some extent the religion has tuned us is escape. But serene mind practice helps you see the truth of your state. That is like slowly but surely you will be able to change the ecosystem within you. But when you have a powerful experience of awakening, if you have to look at the whole experience, human experience as a spectrum, on one side of the spectrum is a stressful state, a state of suffering, a state of sadness or anger or disappointment. That's on one side. On the totally other side is an experience of oneness. When you have an awakening experience, and when you are able to immerse in those awakening or awakened states in consciousness, your tendency to be gripped, your tendency to be enslaved by these stressful state, actually, it loosens. You have a very profound experience of an expanded sense of self, a profound experience of connection that you have. And that becomes the starting point. That experience becomes the starting point for your journey, whereby you make a total shift from this side of the spectrum to the other side of the spectrum. One is a practice, which would be the serene mind practice. The second is to have those profound states in consciousness and to be in those states of consciousness.
Right.
But
Thank you. That makes a lot of sense, because my observation from how you were saying, if you feel that internally, then you wouldn't have the urges to keep choosing external factors that give you that false illusion of numbing the pain temporarily, that is not serving your future self.
That's exactly
that makes sense.
What you're doing in your life, the wealth that you're creating or the organization that you're creating, it must emerge from a place of purpose. A purpose is that which emerges from that experience of connection. When it emerges from that place of purpose, every minute becomes beautiful. Challenges don't bog you down. You don't feel, just like as Herbert shared, situations don't make you feel that you are a failure because you are driven by a larger purpose. Challenges come, but then what you need for those challenges is an immense intelligence that can flow through you. What you need in order to address those challenges is powerful grace, or to be in tune with the entire universal intelligence is what you need. You don't need to be in suffering. You don't need to be in anger or frustration or anxiety or sadness in order to address those problems. Unfortunately, what the world has chosen is that way. We have to change it.
Does it still happen to you that you would react and you would feel annoyance or frustration, or with you it became a habit, then you actually always can maintain that sense of peace?
Even when anxiety does crop or frustration does crop, it doesn't last. Because there is so much of awareness that is built, so much of profound states of experiences that one has had, it doesn't hang on to it, doesn't hold on to you. Right now, it is a habit that you're constantly fueling and building by the day.
Thank you so much. It's a big honor to be in your space. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Anastasia. That was a beautiful question. We may have time for just one more questions if anyone have any questions.
Can I ask that question that time, please? Thank you, Gary, and thank you, Sri Preethaji. So my question is, I know this is the purpose of being a conscious leader, and if I am just an employee of a bank, and I do feel that okay, so everybody is a leader, can expand in my little team. But I do feel that when we have a change of CEO of the bank, then the consciousness of the whole organization change. So from an employee perspective, how can I make that influence in a big organizations?
Let us define leadership first. Leadership, according to me, is not the position that you hold. Leadership is basically the radius of impact that you can have. The impact that you are able to, the positive impact that you're able to create makes you a leader. In terms of how to positively create a large impact on the people around you, the answer, I would say, lies in your state. It is in your inner experience. It is in your inner world. The more you feel expanded, the more you are able to connect, the more you are able to move beyond that limited sense of self into feeling others, into feeling the situation. The response that you could give from that experience of connection that you have, the impact of that response that you would give from that state would be large and huge. But if you're reacting from a space of wanting to prove to somebody, or if you're reacting from wanting to establish yourself, your views, your ideas, or your thinking as being right, or your reaction is from your past frustration, from your past failure, when that becomes the reaction that you give to life or to in the organization, the impact of that is very, very, very tiny, minuscule. If you can nurture a profound state in consciousness, if you can wake up from the limited sense of self into experiencing the profound state of connection, the impact that you can leave on people, on organizations, on your family, it's going to be huge. A spiritual journey, I would say, is a must for every leader. Actually, it is a must for every individual. And it has been a part of every ancient culture to go through a process in order to weed out the past experiences of failures and frustrations and sadness and disappointment, to be born anew, to experience life afresh, and for which a spiritual journey is very important. And your state is extremely important if you want to create a powerful impact.
Thank you so much, Preethaji, and thank you, Sim, for the beautiful question. I just want to reiterate, it's a great opportunity if you're interested to progress the work with Ekam, whether it's someone that runs a hedge fund that's worth over $1 billion, Mike Novogratz, or singer, songwriter, Usher, or Tony Robbins. There's a lot of successful people. There's a lot of Platt Lions, Platt brothers and sisters have joined Ekam in its efforts of raising consciousness and through the work of Preethaji and Krishnaji, if we raise enough leaders with the high level of consciousness, we can raise the awareness and the consciousness of the whole world to bring more love, joy, and peace to it. So I really honor you for being here with us today, Preethaji. I think Mercedes have a quick share that she wants to share from her experience with and with yourself. Yes.
Hi, I'm been so inspired by what you said, Sri Preethaji, about experiencing that profound state and that transformation inside, that it's really deep and sustained and long lasting. And I want to share my quick experience that I had during a mystical process where, you know, when you connect with your childhood, you think about your childhood, and you know that you hear here in your brain, you hear that your parents did the best they could and they didn't know better, and that's what they could do. And you say, logically, you say, yes, of course, that's true. But during a mystical experience that I had with Sri Preethaji, I realized, I really felt it. I felt it deep in my heart that that's the truth. That my mother, for instance, my mother really loved me the best she could, and that I was really loved the best way that I could. So I had that moment of awakening to love, to the love that my mother had for me that I was not seeing before and not feeling inside in every cell. It was more like a happening than a logical understanding. And as I had that awakening, it was like a whole process of perceiving the world in a different way happened. I then realized that, oh, wow, if I'm really loved in that way, I don't need to put effort into trying to be the best, trying to have the best arguments, trying to be above average in everything I do, trying to compete and judge and control. So it was like a process of domino stones falling, and all that burden that was on my shoulder fall off. So this was a deep experience during that process. And as Sri Preethaji mentioned, the moment you awaken to those effects in your life and you perceive life differently, you act differently, and then synchronicities happen. So what happened was that my mother at the time was terminally ill. She was living in Germany. I was living in Puerto Rico. And I didn't know if I would see her. With COVID travel restrictions, it was very difficult. So, but the synchronicities that happened where I was able to drive to Germany, help my parents move to an assisted living. During that living, she passed away. And I had the chance to experience 2 beautiful weeks with her before it happened. And these 2 weeks overcame all the challenges that we had all those years before of me feeling that she didn't love me enough, that life should have given me a better mother, that life owes me something, a sense of entitlement. So all this was gone, and I could connect with her just from pure love. You know, she was laying in her bed, and I just felt inclined to kiss her cheek, to kiss her forehead. And my behavior didn't come out of a concept, like of a thought that I should be a good daughter, and that's what a good daughter does. Instead, there was no thoughts. It was like a natural behavior towards her, towards that moment. It was in me. It was natural. It was nothing, a habit that I had to practice or a concept that I had to apply. It was just love inside me towards her. And this is where I realized in retrospective that this is the deep of that work, that it's not about getting a new concept and exchanging a form of, if you will, a form of meditation with another form of meditation. It's an internal transformation where you don't need to pursue an ideal of being a good daughter, but rather you act out of love from that moment as the moment is there because you are present, right? It's not like you apply a new meditation, like, okay, this is a gratitude meditation. Let me meditate. Let me think about 3 things I'm grateful for. I would do that in the past, and it would help me to maybe cut the edges of my difficult behavior, but I still would have that undercurrent of dissatisfaction and resentment towards my mother. And in that moment, I noticed that this was gone completely, right? And this is really the transformation. And I want for everyone to have those experiences. I don't want for people to waste time, you know, trying to learn new things and just being in that same hamster wheel again and again and again, but rather realizing that there is a way that we can follow, we can go with Sri Preethaji, and it's available for all of us. And I invite everybody to come to Puerto Rico and experience this. Love you all, guys.
Thank you, Mercedes.
Beautiful share, Mercedes, and it was a very beautiful share from Herbert as well.
Well, that concludes our event. I wanted to take this opportunity on behalf of Herbert and myself to thank Sri Preethaji for being on together with us. Thank you for each one of you being on the call. I appreciate you guys so much. And yeah, until next time, thank you so much. Use the link to book a call with Herbert and the team if you feel called, and look forward to connecting with you the next time.
Appreciate for sharing the light. Yeah.
Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you.
You can use this chance to unmute yourself to say goodbye to Sri Preethaji.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Preethaji.
Thank you so much.
Blessings to all of you.
Thank